공기 좋다.
도시를 벗어나서 이렇게 나오니까 정말 좋은 것 같아요.
그러니까 맑은 공기.
근데 우리 늦었는데.
맞다. 좀 늦었습니다. 죄송합니다.
안녕하세요.
데이트 잘하고 왔어?
분위기 너무 좋은데요, 오늘?
왕자리 모셔놨어.
아유, 감사합니다. 근데 오늘 게스트분이
네, 주한 멕시코 대사 호세 루이스 베르날 대사님이세요. 저 이번 주는 그 아스텍 호랑이라 불리는 멕시코를 만나는 시간이에요.
멕시코가 아스텍 문명이잖아요. 근데 이게 마야 문명이랑 더 가까운 거예요? 아니면 잉카 문명이랑 더 비슷한가요?
다 다른 거야.
어떻게 달라요? 그럴 줄 알았어요.
우리 멕시코 하면은 피라미드와 태양신의 집.
전 가봤잖아요, 그죠?
진짜? 완전 부럽다.
다 가본 거 아니에요, 멕시코?
자, 그러면은 멕시코에서 제일 큰 피라미드는 어디에 있어요?
그건 잘 모르고 제가 태양의 피라미드랑 달의 피라미드 두 군데를 갔었거든요. 그 중에 하나.
뭐 멕시코 그렇게 내 집 드나들듯이 갔다 왔는데 뭐 그 정도도 모르나?
제 기억으로는 태양의 피라미드가 더 컸었던 것 같아요.
맞아요. 태양의 피라미드가 세계에서 세 번째로 큰 피라미드래요.
어쩐지 그 올라가느라 진짜 힘들었어요.
근데 우리가 피라미드 하면 보통 이집트가 생각나지 멕시코에 이렇게 큰 피라미드가 있을 거라고 상상도 못했네요.
기능의 차이가 약간 있는 것 같아요. 그러니까 이집트에서는 보통 왕의 무덤을 피라미드로 했지만 멕시코에서는 하늘에 제사 지내는 제사님이 많았거든요.
생김새 차이도 있지 않나요? 어땠어요? 준호 씨 직접 가봤으니까 좀 다르게 생겼나요?
비교를 한번 해볼까요?
직접 가봤으니까.
제가 이집트를 안 가봤어.
근데 멕시코가 요즘 그 남미 경제대국으로 떠오른다면서요.
기사에 보니까 골만삭스가 2025년이면 멕시코가 세계 5대 경제국으로 떠오를 거라고 전망을 하더라고요.
그러려면 인구도 좀 받쳐줘야 되는 거 아니에요? 멕시코 인구가 엄청 되지.
인구 1억 2천만 정도 되니까 규모도 꽤 큰 것 같아요.
그러니까 meg시코가 굉장히 잠재력이 큰 나라인데 진짜 놀라운 사실을 하나 발견했어요. 멕시코가 OECD 국가 중에서 노동 시간이 가장 많아요. 1등 1등.
에이, 우리나라가 있는데 어떻게 멕시코가.
그럼 심지어 우리나라는 3위.
진짜요?
2위는 물어보지 마세요.
두 나라 사이의 경제 교류도 꽤 오래됐죠.
네, 1980년대부터 멕시코에 투자했는데 대중남미 교역량도 멕시코가 최고래요.
근데 보통 우리나라랑 교류가 많은 중남미 나라 하면 브라질이 제일 먼저 떠오르는데 되게 의외인 것 같아요, 멕시코는.
그러니까는 최근에 특히나 더 우리나라랑 멕시코랑 경제 교류가 되게 급물살을 타고 있다고 하니까 그 최근 동향에 대해서 대사님하고 좀 깊이 얘기 나눠보면 많은 얘기가 나올 것 같아요.
근데 저는 경제 교류도 그렇지만 문화 교류도 좀 궁금하거든요. 아즈텍 문화랑 우리나라 문화랑 어떻게 교류되고 있는지.
비슷한 점이 굉장히 많은 것 같아요. 둘 다 열정적이고 흥도 많고. 그래서 그런 공통점에 대해서도 대사님한테 한번 여쭤보면 좋을 것 같아요. 키워드 정리를 해야 되겠죠. 어떤 게 있을까요?
저는 멕시코에 가본 사람으로서 문화 교류가
끝까지 밀고 가요. 그리고
어떻게 진행되고 있는지 좀 궁금하거든요. 네.
직접 인터뷰를 했으면 좋겠어요. 정말 직접 멕시코 갔다 온 사람으로서. 그리고요.
요즘 멕시코가 개혁이 몰아치고 있다던데 그 상황도 한번 알아봐야 될 것 같아요.
그리고 코렉시코라고 하는 말도 있어요. 그러니까 한국하고 멕시코가 신흥 경제 대국으로 요즘 확 떠오르고 있다고 하거든요. 그러니까 코렉시코라는 주제로 해서도 좀 두 나라 간의 경제 이야기를 들어보면 좋을 것 같아요.
그래서 열정과 정말 색감이 풍부한 나라를 한번 같이 떠나봐요.
Mexico was the heart of the ancient and mighty Aztec civilization, and today it is still home to more pyramids than Egypt, even the largest pyramid on the American continent. It is a country full of amazing and surprising stories. Today we'll share some of those stories with Mexican Ambassador Jose Luis Bernal. Ambassador, thank you so much for coming on Heart to
Thank you,
Heart.
Teresa. I'm very pleased to be here and very honored to speak to your audience, which is a very big audience in Heart to Heart.
Thank you very much. And we're so lucky to have you because I understand this is your first TV interview after taking post in Korea just
Well, I'm lucky
3
to
months
come
ago.
to Arirang TV to speak about Mexico, about our bilateral relationship, which is increasing every day. And we're trying to do our best in trying to adjust to our new position here in Korea.
Right. And it's only been about 3 months since you came to Korea, so how is it going so far?
It's going very well. I mean, I was amazed to see the dynamism of the city, of the country, and we are positively surprised about the many, many things that Korea offers, not only to its own citizens, but to the world in general.
It must have been quite surprising to be posted to Korea. I understand it's your first posting in Asia. Before you were in the Czech Republic and also Switzerland. Did you have any idea that you would be sent to Korea? Did you want to come to Korea? How did you receive the news?
Well, I think that for any Mexican diplomat, it's always a challenge to come to serve in countries like Korea, in this area of Asia, I mean, which we find the most, the biggest dynamism in the world today. And Korea has become one of the most important partners for Mexico. Today is the 6th most important trading partner for Mexico, and for a diplomat like myself with the economic formation, it's very important to come and represent my country in this area. So even if we don't have the hints before being posted, we are always looking to serve in countries as dynamic and modern as Korea.
Well, before we get to the trade and all the different bilateral relations, let me introduce our viewers to more of Mexico and especially the Aztec culture. It was quite surprising to hear that Mexico has more pyramids than Egypt. When we think of pyramids, we think of Egypt, but Mexico has more. Are they all from the Aztec civilization? Can you tell us about some of the cultural relics?
We have actually we have pyramids from different civilizations, ancient civilizations. I mean, the biggest that are kept intact in Mexico up to today are in the area of Teotihuacan, which used to belong to the Aztec civilization. They are big pyramids representing the sun and the moon, and there are other discoveries around. But there are also big pyramids, big temples representing other cultures like the Mayan civilization that existed even before than the Aztecs, and they are also very well kept. The biggest of them and the most representative is that in Chichen Itza. But there are many others in the peninsula, in the Yucatan Peninsula. Also, we can find pyramids or temples up on the hills in the area of Oaxaca, which represents another culture, the Mixteco Zapoteca, in Monte Alban, a very, very nice pyramid. And we can go around Mexico City, the central part of Mexico, the eastern coast along the Gulf of Mexico, and all the Yucatan Peninsula. We will find many temples representing all civilizations, from the Aztecs, the Olmecs, Toltecs, Mayans, Mixtecs, and there are many other big civilizations that flourished in what is Mexico today before the Spaniards came.
Right. They're very different looking from the ones in Egypt. And did they serve the same purpose? Were they sort of the burial grounds for royalty and the leaders? What sort of purpose did they serve?
They serve different purposes. I mean, for example, for the Mayans, it was more like observatory. They were places to look at the sun. Well, to look at the skies in general. For the Aztecs, was more to look to the sun and the moon, and to pay tribute to the gods representing the sun and the moon. In other areas were more like burial palaces or monuments, like in Monte Alban. And there are some other temples, small ones, which used to belong to the cultures along the Gulf of Mexico, that were more dedicated to burial places.
Did not know that. And I heard that recently your country, Mexico, celebrated its Independence Day. But despite the name Independence Day, it doesn't mean when you gained independence, it was the start of independence movements. Can you explain that a bit?
Yeah, Mexico started its independence movement actually on the evening from the 15th to the 16th of September 1810. And that was started by what is called as the cry for independence. There was a leader of independence movement, Miguel Hidalgo, who came out and shouted to the people, "Viva la independencia de México! Long live an independent Mexico!" That means, every year we remind ourselves of the start of this movement to gain independence, which was a big movement that lasted for several years, and independence was actually gained only in September 1821. It was 11 years after the initial movement. But the beginning is a cry. It's a cry. It's a big shout for independence.
Right.
We proclaim ourselves as independent from that moment, and that is the reason why we celebrate in that date.
Where did he say this, or where did he make this cry? In Zocal, or where was
He started this movement in the state of Guanajuato, in central Mexico. This was a cry against the domination by the Spanish crown at the time, and the idea that Mexico could grow up as an independent country because we had the people, the resources, the matureness of people, and the ideals to organize ourselves as an independent country. We have to remember that Mexico was forming a new civilization since the beginning of the conquest, back in 1520, and that Mexicans at that time felt that they were ready to become an independent country. And the meaning means long live Mexico, long live independent Mexico. And that is the idea that we proclaim every year. When we celebrate, we are just reaffirming our idea that we are an independent country.
Was the reign by Spain quite a brutal and quite a damaging one? How are the relations now that with Spain, and was the independence also
we're
a very
talking of
brutal
a
fight?
long history there. We're talking, at the beginning we can say it was brutal because the civilization they encountered in central Mexico was a big civilization.
Right.
Was very rich, was very much advanced. They didn't know. Spaniards at the time didn't know that they couldn't imagine that this existed anywhere in the world. So they came, and at the beginning they tried to impose their idea, their beliefs, their organization to the pre-existing civilization, and it was made by force of the arms, but also by force of the mind, which meant the missionaries trying to convince people to become Catholic instead of preserving their own old beliefs. This was the first years, but then they realized that it was better to take advantage of what existed before. Was a big civilization, very well organized, and then it started a movement which is called sort of a symbiosis between the two civilizations, the previous ones, the Spaniards who came, plus other Europeans coming to conquer America. And along the years, we're talking about 300 years of colonial presence of Spain. The Mexican civilization grew up as something new, something different. Similar processes happened in other regions in America, like in Peru. But for the Mexican case, it was very interesting to see the previous areas of civilization being incorporated into a new society. And the result is what we call the Mexican culture, the Mexican nation. Is a different race, different to what came from Europe, what existed before. So it was a new civilization that was born, which were even bigger than those existing at the times in Europe. It's very interesting, and all the sciences, literature, political organization was developing by itself in the new region.
Well, as you said, Mexicans have a very special Independence Day celebration. They have a special ceremony to mark it as well. Join our cameras as we follow the Mexican Independence Day celebrations here in Korea. In September, an event commemorating the 203rd anniversary of Mexico's Independence Day was held in Seoul.
The fact that we're doing here in Seoul is very important for us. The reason is the Mexican National Day, but it's also an occasion to reiterate our friends in Korea that we are increasing our cooperation in every sector of our bilateral relations.
September 16, 1810. That was the day Father Miguel Hidalgo rang the bell declaring independence in Dolores, Mexico, and initiated the Mexican independence movement. Mexicans shout "Viva Mexico" to honor this important day. The performance of the traditional music band mariachi adds to the excitement. About 300 Mexicans residing in Korea have gathered for this event. The two countries share experiences of foreign invasion, colonial oppression, and independence. We look forward to more exchanges between the two emerging markets.
Either we speak of trade, investment, technological development, culture, exchange of students, we are more and more increasing the links, social link between Mexico and Korea, and that is very important for us.
So, Mr. Ambassador, the cries that were being done with the mariachi band, that's the Viva Mexico, Independent
Yeah, the
Mexico,
first
is that
part,
right?
I mean, this the official ceremony, which is a civic ceremony, is very serious because we are remembering a very important part of our national symbols. So we cry Viva Mexico, long live Mexico. And then we accompany this by the national anthem. Everybody who is Mexican joins in singing the national anthem. And I can tell you that every Mexican will join this celebration. This is our major symbol of national unity. Immediately after, it comes with the mariachi music, with the very festive music. The mariachi represents, again, one of the most important symbols of Mexican culture in Mexico, but also around the world. It's very well known, the kind of music that they play. It's a symbiosis between the old guitar and singing in the countryside together with the trumpets that were brought by Europeans to Mexico at the end of the 19th century. And the final result was the creation of something different in terms of music. Even the name, I mean, mariachi comes from the word in French, mariage. Was the band that used to play for the weddings. So it was the mariachi. It's like the mariachi band. This is the mariachi.
When were the first sort of mariachi bands recorded, or how long is the history of the mariachi?
Including the trumpets, is around the 1870s. And I can tell you because before that, it was mainly guitars playing and singers. I mean, people singing their own feelings. But then there were musicians who came accompanying the Austrian emperor who ruled in Mexico for about 3 years, Maximiliano, from 1862 to 1865. When he was defeated, people who came with him from Central Europe, Austria, what is today the Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Poland, I mean, they came as the members of the army, or as doctors or some accompanying the emperor, and they stayed. The musicians, the members of the army stayed in Mexico, many of them, and they continued to play their instruments. That is why the trumpet was introduced into these local bands. So it became a different kind of music. And so we're talking about the 1870s, and it has developed since then, and expressing always the local feelings of people who are in love, people who love their land, people who want to aspire sometimes to something better in life. So it's very nice music, very festive, and it's unique for Mexico. You cannot find similar music anywhere in the world. It's very unique.
I always think of mariachi and Mexico as Mexicans as loving life. So everything's very colorful and very jovial. And yeah, the mariachi, like it began from the marriage, the weddings, but do they also play for maybe sad occasions as well? Is it usually just for festivals?
They can play for any occasion, from the birth of a child to the funeral of
Even
a person.
funerals?
Yeah, funerals, yeah. They can accompany the person going to cemetery in the funeral. They play in in weddings, in any special occasion. And mariachi can even play very good symphonic music. They are excellent in performing symphonic.
Wow, love
music.
to hear that.
Yes, very nice.
Okay. Well, let's move on to some more recent developments.
Of course.
We frequently referrals to Mexico as the Aztec tiger. Where did this nickname come about?
Well, the nickname, I guess, comes from the comparison with what happened in this part of Asia a few decades ago, with the tigers going up. I mean, economies like that of Korea and
Singapore.
Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand. I think today we should refer more to the Mexican jaguar, because it's closer to our own nature. I mean, that we have this. We don't have tigers in Mexico, but we have pumas, we have jaguars. So the idea is to reflect that Mexico is improving its economic performance. That we are working also in terms of spreading the results of growth, which is distributing income better. Still, we have high levels of poverty. We need to continue fighting against poverty. But the meaning is that Mexico is doing better in economic terms, and we're becoming one of the strongest and biggest economies in the world.
In fact, it's doing so well that I think Goldman Sachs even said that Mexico will emerge as the 5th largest economy in the world by 2025. What are the firm fundamentals, or what is driving these positive forecasts? What is it that's so competitive about the Mexican economy?
There are a few fundamentals. I mean, the most important one is the territory, the population. I mean, people, we have around 120 million people.
And it's a young population?
Mostly young. I mean, the average age is 26 years.
Wow.
But in order for this prediction to happen, we need to work more and better. And that means better educating our own people, training in the new technologies, people, opening up the economy for additional investments, creating our own entrepreneurs in Mexico, among Mexican people. Also, continuing working together with different countries. We have a big relationship with the United States. We have a special relationship with Latin America in general. We have very open doors of communicating, trading, and cooperating with Europe. And we have more and more agreements and relations with the Pacific Asian region. So Mexico is sort of working on different directions so that we can grow not only by ourselves. I mean, it's important that we continue doing that, increasing competitive resources, but that we relate better with the rest of the world. And we will be able to achieve this goal. I mean, it's not our own goal, but it's a prediction that could happen. Today we are in number 12 already. So a few years ago, Mexico was considered just a developing country. And today we are member of the G20, which is the 20 most important economies in the world. We are now in number 12. Hopefully we'll be number 10 very soon. And we will continue working to become 7, 6, or 5. I think this is up to us Mexicans to achieve that goal.
You talked about opening up the economy, and because you said NAFTA was 94, I guess next year would mark the 20th anniversary of NAFTA.
In January, yeah.
How has that been so far? Have the Mexicans been very happy with opening up its border with the biggest economy in the world? Are there calls for more, maybe merging with the U.S. economy? How's that going?
No, we're not talking about merging. We're talking more about diversifying our own economic and social relations. Now, we go back a little bit in history, I mean, 20, 30 years ago. I mean, NAFTA was the result of something that happened before. Was not something that just was born immediately. But we started to work on different reforms back in 1982. And part of those reforms was initially to privatize what used to be a highly state economy, to go against monopolies, to invite foreign investors, private investors, foreign investors to work in the Mexican economy, to open up to foreign trade and competition in order to fight inflation and to have a better availability of products for consumers. Now, this happened before, and part of that process was to be completed with NAFTA. NAFTA was the big opportunity for Mexico to become associated to the biggest economy in the world. In that time, Mexico used to have almost 89% of foreign trade concentrated with the United States. NAFTA has meant many changes in the way the Mexicans perform economically, the way we organize the localities, the different regions, the way we also charge taxes and spend the money, and the way we create infrastructure in order to provide services to the Mexican society. Now, the result has been bigger rates of growth in Mexico, more areas being developed in Mexico. Mexico went from being a closed economy back in 1982 to be today the 8th most important trading country in the world in terms of imports and exports. Wow. And that means that we are producing many products. Back in 1982, again, Mexico was exporting mostly oil and mining resources. Today, Mexico continues to export oil and mining resources, but 80% of our exports are industrial products. So that meant a big change in the mentality, in the reality of the economy, in the performance of Mexico as a country in the world. And the final result in terms of trade is that now trade with the United States is less than 80%. I mean, still, it's a huge amount that we do with the United States.
Biggest trading partner, right, still?
Yeah.
U.S. is?
Yeah, but the other 20%, which is a bigger amount, is being diversified, and we have big amounts of trade, again, with the European Union, with Latin America, with countries like Korea, Japan, China, Singapore. We are increasing our relations with India. So Mexico has been growing, diversifying its own relations, and that is the final result of NAFTA plus other 42 agreements, free trade agreements that Mexico negotiated following the pattern, the example of NAFTA. So now we have free trade agreements with 45 countries in the world.
Right. Mexico's very long and colorful history seems to have formed the firm foundation for its remarkable economic growth. Let's take a closer look into Mexico's culture. The Latin American Cultural Center. A place in Korea where you can experience Latin American culture. A special exhibition featuring the works of the world-famous landscape painter José María Velasco and printmaker José Guadalupe Posada is being held.
José María Velasco is one of the most famous painters in Mexico in the last quarter of the 19th century. Today we are presenting his visions from the Anahuac Valley, which is what is today the valley in Mexico City and the surrounding area. We can see the volcanoes like the Popocatépetl, Iztaccíhuatl, different parts of the society of Mexico at the end of the 19th century.
Velasco is famous for depicting the peaceful and grand nature surrounding Mexico City, and also for painting the lives of Mexicans in the late 19th century.
We're presenting here José Guadalupe Posada. He was the first sort of famous engraver in Mexico. He was a printer in many ways. He was working by doing these images depicting different persons, different characters of the Mexican politics at the beginning of the 20th century. I like to present this collection everywhere I go as an ambassador, and I'm very happy that we are able to present this in Korea this time.
José Guadalupe Posada is a printmaker who influenced Mexico's revolutionary art. The works featured in this special exhibition are all from the personal collection of the Mexican ambassador in Korea. About 100 participants, including diplomats and ambassadors from 17 Latin countries, showed great interest in the special exhibition. Cultural exchanges with Latin America that is full of passionate culture and art continues on today.
But it's very important because we are having this presentation in this museum dedicated to Latin America and the Caribbean here. So it's important for us to join the two cultures, Mexico and Korea. And by doing this, we are joining also Latin America to the Korean people.
Ambassador Bernal, I heard that some of the works that were displayed, the works of Posado in particular, were taken from your own personal collection. So how would you describe sort of the Mexican aesthetic, maybe? I don't know if it's possible to do that because it's so rich and varied, but for instance, if we think of Scandinavian design or the aesthetic, it's very simple, pared down, natural. How would you describe the Mexican art or aesthetic?
We can say, I mean, I think it's easier to see than easy to say.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's plentiful of colors.
Yeah.
I mean, when you see the Mexican colors, the combination, that is a sort of a current of art. It's different to other combination of colors anywhere in the world. When you see the Mexican shapes, I mean, the shapes will show popular handcrafts, for example, popular beliefs, the way the houses are built. So there is also an expression in the shapes. Then, when you see the combination of images, you will see either fruits, flowers, houses, sceneries, I mean, the painting of the towns of the countryside. So the combination also will reflect something which is very unique to Mexico. Once you combine that with food in many paintings, then you can almost feel the smell of good food, because food is a very important component of Mexican culture. It's a very rich and very diverse, very colorful too. So we are talking about art, either we speak of painting, of music, of architecture, of the local development of how cities are built, and of course about cooking. When we speak about cooking, we're speaking about big art in Mexico.
So let's talk about food, one of my
Why
favorite
not?
subjects yet. I heard that the Mexican Tourism Board recently held an event called Gastronomic Route. It was a food festival of Mexican food. Could you explain us a little about this and the
Yeah, of
theme
course.
too?
We wanted to bring the Korean people this representation of Mexican food by suggesting different places, because as I said before, we have a very diverse tradition of cooking in Mexico. And I can tell you, I mean, why we had this idea of presenting the touristic routes, because we are inviting the Korean people to come to Mexico and visit the different regions, enjoy the richness that nature gave us, but also enjoy the local production of food, the local architecture, the local customs, the local people, I mean, who are very friendly. But speaking about food, I mean, I can imagine, I mean, going from the north of Mexico, northwestern part, we have food which is unique to that region. So we can speak about grilled beef on the one hand. We can speak even of Chinese food in the northern part of Mexico. We can speak of the production of wines in the state of Baja California. A lot of seafood prepared differently to other regions in Mexico or in Latin America. Mexico has a big diversity of seafood and fish. Then we continue going into different parts of Mexico. So in the states of the northwestern part, apart from the peninsula of Baja California, we can speak of beef, different kinds of presentations. We go deeper into the central part of Mexico, we will see more traditional plates that have to do with old techniques of cooking, with the colonial rules of cooking, and the development of recent years. So we can speak of different kinds of preparations with chili peppers, with different kinds of meat, either poultry, beef, or pork. We can speak of different presentations of fish on the Pacific side or on the Gulf side of Mexico. And we can go and speak about the sauces, about many presentations, and of course, always you will find the culture of corn. I mean, corn is present, beans are present, rice is very present in Mexican food, and all kind of chili peppers, presented on different ways, different sauces, combined differently. And one of the best known plates in Mexican cuisine is called mole. Mole from Puebla. Mole poblano is a combination of many ingredients, combining, I think, 7 or 9 different chili peppers in one sauce with chocolate.
I know. So Mexican food is colorful. It's, I mean, delicious is a given, but it's also very colorful. What would be another factor that made it a UNESCO World Cultural Heritage in 2010? I mean, it's a cuisine, but to be called a UNESCO World Heritage, Cultural Heritage, what are the other factors that helped it become designated as such?
It's important to remember that there are only a few national cuisines which are recognized as UNESCO heritage. I think Mexico was the fourth one in the world, and the fact is that Mexican cooking represents culture. It's long-held traditions. It's a good combination of ingredients. It's a masterful combination of ingredients. It's many kinds of presentations. I mean, you can mention tacos, but even if we speak of tacos, tacos can take 1,000 different faces.
Right.
There are many, many ways of making tacos. If we speak about more sophisticated dishes, the Mexican cuisine is very special. It's very special, and it will always be tasteful, flavorful, colorful, and nutritious. I mean, and then we combine the different elements, the different places, the different regions, the different drinks that we have to accompany the food. So we're talking of a big culture. It's a big culture contained by itself within the Mexican boundaries, and now we're expanding the presence of the Mexican food everywhere by presenting this to our friends in other countries.
Is the Mexican Food Festival still going on?
It lasted until the last day of September, but we are planning now for the next one. So we will have at least 2 of them in Seoul next year.
Okay. Sooner better than later.
At least 2 next year. Yeah.
Great. We'll look forward to that. Let's talk now about some cultural exchanges between our two countries. Not too long ago, I heard that a Mexican pop band actually visited Korea for a performance as well. How were they received? Did they have a big fan base here in Korea?
They found, I mean, they were surprised that they could go to speak first to different people, young people in universities and different places. And young ladies started to sing together with them in Spanish. I mean, the Mexican songs. They also have some songs in English. And they were going around, and they made a concert here, and the fans they have is quite amazing. I mean, the numbers. But also, we saw that Korean K-pop groups are going to Mexico, and they found thousands of followers, thousands of fans who were greeting them in Mexico, also singing in Korean language, which is very strange. I mean, for us. But they can do it. I mean, because of the speed of communication, because they are connected by the social networks, because of, I mean, young people are becoming more active in terms of the new waves of culture. We have seen that the Korean culture is spreading in Mexico. We hope that we will see more Mexican groups coming to perform in Korea, and we are very happy, very delighted to support this kind of exchanges, because this is the present, but this is also the future of our relations. This is the way we will get together more and more, and to get to know each other.
So what's your favorite K-pop band?
In Korea?
Yeah.
No, I will be discriminating if I mention. No, there are several.
Diplomatic, yes.
No, we're following, I mean, the new trends. We're also recommending the new bands from Mexico. And we're still in the process of knowing better the Korean culture.
I
So
was just teasing. You can't mention one particular band on air. That's not good, no. But aside from K-pop, I know that part of Korean culture that has been very popular in Mexico for a long time is Taekwondo. I hear that one city, Puebla, I don't know if I pronounced that right, it's a population of 1.5 million people. So an average size city maybe, but it has already 130 Taekwondo studios. Is that just a representative sort of figure of how popular Taekwondo is in Mexico?
Taekwondo is very popular since many years ago. Everywhere in Mexico. I mean, Puebla is like the biggest city which has, or the city that has more schools. And Puebla was the place that hosted the last World Championship of Taekwondo.
Yes.
It's very important because they are educating all generations, I mean, from young people to elder generations, with the Taekwondo as a discipline, as a sport, as a philosophy, in terms of how do you take care of your body. And this is happening everywhere in Mexico, in different states, but more in central Mexico. And that is the reason why Mexico was selected to host the World Championship. Also, I mean, Mexico has been sort of winning some of the first places in this discipline. And this is something that has been in Mexico, at least for the last 40 years. It's a long tradition of Taekwondo.
I wonder if the Mexican people's fondness for Taekwondo is also linked to similar temperaments. Koreans have been going to Mexico, I think, from the beginning of the 20th century, so a long history of Koreans living in Mexico. And I hear that some of the Koreans say that actually Koreans and Mexicans share the same temperaments. Is that true?
We're very much alike. I mean, in terms of temperament, in terms of family traditions, in terms of the way we relate to food.
Obsessive.
The way we relate to our own national identity. I mean, we are very nationalistic countries. So in that sense, we share many similarities. And that is why whenever you sit together, Mexican and Korean people, you will find many affinities. And after a few minutes, we can say that we have become friends. So either the Mexican person will say that, or the Korean person will say it spontaneously. I mean, this is not a cliche. We feel very close together, and when we speak, we find many affinities, which make us become even closer together.
Have you felt that since you came to Korea? Even more so by being surrounded by Koreans?
No, every time I meet with the new Korean friends, I mean, after a few minutes, we can say, well, it's like we have seen or known each other from a long time, because we can speak of many things that we share in common. Everyone with his own identity, but at the end, there are many similarities.
Right. Well, I'm joined by Mexican Ambassador Jose Luis Bernal, and we'll be right back after this. What about the Day of the Dead?
It created a new kind of syncretism in Mexico. Makes a connection between those who are still alive and those who have departed. But we do it on a festive manner. I mean, we remember our dead people.
So, Mr. Ambassador, for dozens of years, Mexico has actually been Korea's greatest importer among the Latin American countries. And in 2005, the two countries established a strategic partnership for mutual partnership. What kind of results have we seen since then? And what does this mean, the strategic partnership?
Well, that meant back in 2005 that, I mean, we had a recommendation by a group of experts that Mexico and Korea could graduate their relationship upwards. We started to do that in 2006, so as to work together on different areas related to trade, investment, technological transfers, and different cooperation sectors. Along these years, I mean, we're talking the last 7 years, I mean, we were increasing our trade and investment of Korean firms in Mexico. But then the crisis hit, international crisis hit in 2008, more in 2009. Our two economies suffered a lot. And that opened other ways of communicating between Mexico and Korea. I mean, how to exchange experiences in dealing with crisis. Mexico has a long history of dealing with crisis in the past, in the 1970s. So we could share something. And we had felt another big financial crisis in 1995. So we could share experiences with the Korean authorities. So that opened new ways for chapters of cooperation that were not in the strategic alliance. We continue to do that, and the final result after 7 years is that trade is increasing. Even if we do not have a free trade agreement between Mexico and Korea, we enjoy bigger trade than with many other countries. among us.
Is a free trade agreement in the making? Can we see
I
one
will
in the
speak
future?
about that later, but
Off camera.
yeah. No, but I mean, we're talking about inviting more Korean companies to come and invest in Mexico. And by doing that, we are talking about incorporating technologies, new technologies into the Mexican economy. But in order to be able to absorb those technologies, we need to prepare people. So we're talking about training, technological education and training for the Mexican people. We're talking about new managerial techniques also. And to do that, we need to exchange programs in terms of our own experiences, both in Korea and in Mexico, on how to deal with the transformation processes. So we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4 chapters. That is the complexity of the strategic partnership. Now, we are speaking now about how to graduate even to higher levels the relationship. And we're speaking, of course, of improving our trade relations, about how to invite more investors to come to Mexico, about how to explore new sectors in which we can cooperate: energy, environment, how to tackle climate change. For Mexico, there are a few priorities, national priorities. The first one is how to fight poverty, and we are benefiting from the experiences in Korea in the past 4 to 5 decades. We are starting new programs of cooperation for the learning process on the Mexican side on how to tackle this or that problem. So that makes our relationship more complex, richer, and we have to prepare for the next chapters of negotiations. That will include, of course, additional trade negotiations. We cannot speak only of a free trade agreement. We can speak of a more complex economic cooperation agreement. We cannot give it a title yet, because we have to work on that, and we're starting to work on that.
I think, Mr. Ambassador, talking to you, you've only been here for 3 months, but I have a sense that you have a very clear-cut plan for your stay in Korea. Can I ask you to share that with our viewers? What do you wish to achieve during your positioning here?
Well, we're centering in, I would say, 5 axes of the relationship, or 5 chapters. Again, it's trade. I mean, we are enjoying trade which is higher than $15 billion per year. We need to graduate that to go probably 20 billion and even higher in the next 5 to 10 years. But to do that, we have to prepare the instruments today on how to achieve those goals. In Mexico, we have established more than 1,500 Korean companies working on every different sector. And we would like to invite even more companies to come and start joint ventures with Mexican companies, so as to recreate our already strong partnership into a different kind of association for regional development, for local development, for sectorial development. Now, we are working already on how to do this through a program of exchanging knowledge. These days, we have in Korea a big group of Mexicans who are coming to benefit from those experiences, and will go back to their own localities to implement recommendations that we're gaining from the expertise of Korean former responsible of these areas. And then we're talking about how to select new technologies in the energy sector. Will be fundamental for the future growth of Mexico in every area of energy production, and also in the environmental side. I mean, how to tackle climate change and how to preserve our own resources on a sustainable manner. So we have to be selective, we have to be deep in our negotiations, we have to be sort of predicting the future. I mean, we want to, for this to happen, we need to prepare the instruments today for that to be a reality.
What about on a personal note? What do you wish to sort of achieve during your stay here? When you do go to a new country, it becomes a second home to you. Is there anything, because this is your first post in Asia, first time in Korea, is there something personally that you would like to achieve with your wife here?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking forward, I mean, to learn more about the philosophy of life in this region, in Korea in particular. We also would like to, I mean, to get better engaged in a new culture. I mean, it's a new cultural setting. It's very important, I mean, to learn, I mean, to us to learn how societies like the Korean society have been able to come out of poverty, to come out of different levels of development, to enjoy technology, to have good conditions of life. I mean, probably this is very much related to what we do, but this is our job, this is our life. So we have to come back to Mexico and say we have lived this and that experience, we have learned from this and that society, and this is something we want to share back with our own people in Mexico, either at the family level or at the national level.
I hear that whenever you visit a country, you may arrive as an ambassador of your own country, but when you leave, you become a second ambassador of that country that you lived in. So we'd like to thank you once again for sharing your time here with us today. Korea and Mexico may be geographically very far apart, but after listening to you, I think we are very close in partnership and friendship. So I'd like to thank you once again.
Thank you very much. And we are not that far away. We're very close and getting closer.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And that was Mexican Ambassador Jose Luis Bernal talking with us here on Heart to Heart. Thank you for joining us, and to join us again next time. Bye-bye.